The news today of Al, I guess we'll start with the biggest question, the effect that he had on the Tigers organization as a whole. I mean, the history obviously is well documented of him, but of all former Tigers, where does he rank and how big of an impact did he have on the Detroit Tigers organization?
I'm smiling just because there was nobody who had a bigger impact. I mean, think about it, 65 years plus, 67 to be exact, that he was part of this organization as a player, a broadcaster, or a special assistant. And I always think about every time we had an on-field ceremony, and whether it was, to honor, say, the 68 team or somebody else, he would be up there. Whenever you introduced him, what was the biggest ovation of the day was for Al Kaline. It always made me smile. It always reminded you there's a reason he's Mr. Tiger. And it was special. I mean, there's just what he contributed these last 15 years plus as a special advisor was huge for this organization. He didn't miss a thing, and I just loved it when he would come into the booth, usually to say hi to Jim, our broadcast partner, and I'd just make sure that I listened in on their conversation, or if Jim wasn't around, pick his brain a little bit, because he always had something interesting, either an observation or something to say about the game or the team.
I think that's interesting because he was such a teacher, and he never got away from that. I would see the same thing you saw in the clubhouse, going by a locker and kind of pulling a guy aside, and the just ability he had to generationally continue to speak to players is really incredible.
Yeah, because the advice he had, was just, there were some constants in baseball in terms of ways you hit. And here's a guy with 3,000 plus hits. And some of those things still applied to today. And I think it was very gratifying for him, Justin, in recent years. There were, I think, sometimes he was frustrated at times that players didn't come to him sometimes to ask for advice, but it seemed like they were doing that more in the last couple of years. And he'd always make himself available. He'd always go down to the clubhouse and just kind of sit by a locker and maybe chat quietly, but he wanted players to come up and talk to him. And they did more and more in recent years. And I think that was really gratifying for him, and just made him feel like he was a part of this organization in a big way.
I don't know if we know the particulars on what happened or how it happened.
Yeah, I don't.
Or if you could share any of that with us.
No, I don't. I really don't know anything more than what's been reported.
Where does he rank as far as all of the greats from that era? He's obviously a guy who we around here really look up to, but I also have kind of seen just in the couple last minutes, national outlets are talking about Al Kaline and national pundits for baseball. How big of a name was he for baseball as a whole? Oh,
it was huge. And his career was somewhat hurt by injuries and some injury-shortened seasons. But, when you burst onto the scene as a 20-year-old, think about it. He was in the major leagues 3 weeks after he graduated from high school. Now, it was because of the bonus baby rules back in those days. If you signed for a certain amount, you had to be in the major leagues for 2 years. But the thought was, here was a guy who was going to go back to the minor leagues after those 2 years and get some seasoning. Well, the year that he was supposed to go back to the minor leagues was his age 20 season. He wins a batting title by hitting .340, and certainly announced to the world that, he was a budding superstar. And while that might have been, one of his best years, he had a very good career. And I think the thing that, his contemporaries felt like he was one of the best. 18 All-Star appearances certainly tells part of the story. But I think everybody appreciated, Justin, what he did every day, the consistency in his game. He wanted to play the game the right way. And it sounds, everybody does, right? But no. He paid attention to detail. He always hit the cutoff man for a reason. If you dared to run on him, he'd cut you down. That sun field and right field was brutal at Tiger Stadium. Never lost a ball in the sun. Well, that takes a lot of hard work. You developed instincts because you worked hard at it. And I think everybody appreciated how he played the game day in and day out. It wasn't just sometimes, it was all the time. And I think his peers held him in high regard. I know he felt like Carl Yastrzemski was maybe one of the most talented players of his generation. But if you put together a short list of that 22 years he was in the major leagues, he's right at the top. There's some very good players in that era, but he's certainly top 5 of that era. in the years that he played.
How will you remember him?
I just remember him just being so, still in his 80s, still very vital and very energized every time he came into the booth. Smile on his face usually. Maybe have a funny story to tell or just something to make you laugh. And he just loved life. He loved being at the ballpark. And I think we saw that his years as a ball player and as a broadcaster and as a special assistant. He loved being at the ballpark, and he was there a lot. He had some health issues last year, but when he was there, he was always that same Al Kaline. So I'll just remember him, how he always treated me so nicely. I mean, he was stopping in the booth to say hi to Jim mostly, but, I'd always make sure that we got into a conversation and I got to know him a little bit. And that was a true pleasure because of the person that he was.
I'll get you out of here on this one. It's sad. Obviously, it's sad, but I feel like he's going to be celebrated so much by the fans, by the players, current, past, present, because of his impact on not only the Detroit Tigers organization, but baseball as a whole. Do you have one memory, maybe when you first got the gig, that when he started coming around? Because I know that he did adapt a little bit to the media and understanding that a little bit more as he got a little older and get it more ingrained in the organization. Maybe do you have an early memory when you first were on the call?
Well, it's funny because we used to do a pregame and postgame in the 90s when I was at WJR before I got this job. And he was always nice, but like you said, I don't think it wasn't his favorite thing to do. We'd try to get him for an interview or get us, it wasn't his favorite thing. But he was always nice about it, but it wasn't really. And then just to get to know him on a much better level, higher level, if you will, from those days on was really something. And I think I guess the thing that I'll treasure more than anything is we got a picture out of nowhere one day. This is some years ago of Mickey Mantle. I could probably walk my laptop over and show it to you if you want. Mickey Mantle and Al Kaline. Should I do that? Because it's a great picture. In spring training in probably the late 50s. And I have no idea where this man got this picture or why they wanted to give it to us. But this picture of those two is a treasure. And I asked him to sign it, and he wrote, "To Dan, best wishes to a great guy, Al Kaline, Hall of Fame, 1980. That's a treasure. And that's just, I don't know, that's just one of the things that was the fun part of getting to know him, and to have that prominent display in our ground floor, and all my other stuff is up in the baseball room. That's really a keepsake and a treasure.
Dan, thank you so much for sharing that. That's one of one. That's one of one. You have such a unique relationship with him. That's its own thing, but that memorabilia is very cool. And by the way, he could still take us both in golf any day.
Any day.
All right, Dan. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. We'll see you hopefully sooner than later.
All right, Justin. Enjoyed talking with you.
All right.
All right. Take care.